So on the top shelf of my cart back here, I have every unread book on my physical TBR, and it's not that bad. Like, it's not that bad, but I do need to read some of them because I keep buying books and I have no room for them. So today we're going to go through them all, try and figure out which ones I want to read before the end of the year. Let's get started. Oh my gosh, my light down here keeps turning off. I don't know why. We're gonna do this in no particular order because I just pulled them all off my shelf and they weren't in an order to begin with. So the first book we have here is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I'm really excited to read this. I kind of want to read this one soon because I feel like it'll be really fast paced if it's anything like The Inheritance Games, which is also by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and I love that series. Why? Anyway, this is about a bunch of teenagers that have special abilities, not like psychic special abilities, I don't think. Like, I don't think this is a supernatural-esque book. Our main character, Cassie, for example, is just really good at reading people. And so they start working with the FBI to solve cold cases, like infamous cold cases, and catch serial killers and stuff like that. This just sounds so fun. I've heard it's like a teen Criminal Minds kind of vibe. And then next we have His and Hers by Alice Feeney. This has been on my TBR a couple times now. And I do really want to read it because I have only read a couple of Alice Feeney's books. I really liked them. I feel like she has really good twists in her thrillers, which I appreciate. Again, I don't really know what this is about, but it's a woman that is murdered and then a detective that becomes a suspect and their secrets. Then we have One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This I bought because I wanted to read another book by them because Casey McQuiston wrote Red, White, and Royal Blue and the writing in it is amazing, and so I've been really wanting to pick up another one of their books, so I have this one. And I have not read it yet, but it's about August who lives in New York City and doesn't believe in love, but then she spots Jane on the subway and soon realizes that Jane is literally displaced in time from the 1970s. So she has to try and help Jane get back to her timeline, maybe? I don't know. Then we have The Wake Up Call by Beth O'Leary. I think this is gonna be my next book. I'm in between books right now, and I'm pretty sure that I put this on my November TBR. It's still November, so we got time. Not much time. It's November 29th, but I'm gonna read this next. I think it's holiday. It's kind of holiday-y. It's about two hotel receptionists and arch rivals who find a collection of old wedding rings and compete to return them to their owners, discovering their own love story along the way. I read The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary this year and I loved it. It was like my most surprising read of the year. I think I ended up giving it 4.5 stars, so I have high hopes for this. Next, The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I think it's Poston. And this is a paranormal romance, sort of. It's about a romance writer who stops believing in love and then she's like panicking about meeting a deadline for her new editor, and then she ends up having to go back to her hometown after her father passes away, and she finds a ghost standing at the funeral, and it is the ghost of her new editor. I've heard really good things about this. I've heard really good things about The 7 Year Slip as well, so both books that I want to read at some point. I have Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. I've had this on my TBR shelf for too long. Like, I really do need to read this, and I want to read it. I do. I love Greek mythology. I just finished the new Percy Jackson book, The Chalice of the Gods. It was super fun. Obviously, this is a different vibe than Percy Jackson, but it's a Medusa retelling, sort of. It's from Medusa's perspective. But it's basically about how Poseidon and Athena like ruin her life and turn her into Medusa, I think. It's been on my TBR for quite some time. And then I have Starcrossed by Minnie Dark. This has also been on my TBR for far too long. I bought this because I really liked the cover. I want to do a reading vlog where I read books that I bought based on the covers at some point soon, hopefully. This is a romance about Justine and Nick, and Justine writes for a magazine and Nick bases all his life's decisions on his horoscope from said magazine, and so Justine realizes she can just kind of write things that will make Nick want to date her, but then she doesn't consider that there are other Aquariuses in the world. They're also going to read her horoscopes and chaos ensues, and it just sounds really fun. I am excited about this. I just, like, there's so many books I want to read, and every time I get a new book I want to read my newest books, and then the old books get pushed to the back, you know? This book, this is so random. It's There'll Be Peace When You Are Done, which is by Lynn, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but she's written a couple books about supernatural, and this is one of them, and it has like excerpts from fans and from a bunch of different cast members, like about their experience on the show and the impact it's had. Oh my gosh, wait, that looks like my tattoo. I have a supernatural tattoo, fun fact. And I really do want to read this because I think it will be really interesting, and I've had it forever. I don't know why I haven't picked it up. I think I'm just like not as inclined to pick up nonfiction, but Supernatural is one of my favorite shows of all time. It's such a comfort show for me. Next book is The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. I've said this who knows how many times at this point on my channel. I love Better Than the Movies. It's great. It was so good. I also read Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. Didn't love it quite as much. I think I might be a bigger fan of her YA novels, which is perfect because that's what this is. This is also a Valentine's Day time loop book where Emily just continuously finds out that her boyfriend is cheating on her, I'm pretty sure, and then she meets enigmatic Nick, who she keeps running into in unfortunate ways. And I am such a sucker for time loop anything, specifically time loop movies, so that's right up my alley. Then I have How to Kill Men and Get Away with It. This has also been on my TBR for a really long time, and I gotta be honest, the more I hear about this book, the less I want to read it. Like, I have heard such mid reviews of this book. I think I might enjoy it, but I don't know. It's supposed to be really like sarcastic and like witty, and it's basically about Kitty Collins who accidentally kills someone that's following her home, and then she just kind of like keeps killing people, killing men specifically, and it says it's a deliciously dark, hilariously twisted story about friendship, love, and murder. So I don't know, I'm like 50-50 on whether I will enjoy this, but I do want to read it at some point because it does sound fun in theory. Then I have Divine Rivals. This is also my TBR this month. I have to be honest, Iron Flame put me into a little bit of a reading slump, and then Finale, which is the third book in Caraval, put me into a bigger reading slump. I found that book so disappointing. Not Iron Flame. I loved Iron Flame. That, because I loved it so much I didn't want to read anything else, and then Finale, I struggled to get through so much that I couldn't read anything else. Anyway, that's irrelevant to this. Divine Rivals is a fantasy, historical kind of romance. It's about Iris and Roman, who are rivals at a paper, and Iris is writing letters to who she thinks is her brother, who's at the front lines of a god war, and she just kind of slips them under her wardrobe and they vanish, and she thinks they're going to her brother, and she thinks her brother is writing back, but really it's Roman that is writing back. And it's an enemies to lovers fantasy, which I'm going to read. If you say it's a enemies to lovers fantasy, like if it's a fantasy romance, like I'm going to read it. And it has a really pretty cover underneath the dust jacket, which I really like. Next up, I bought this book on a whim, like literally days ago, and it's because it was, like I said, it's advertised as fantasy romance, and if it's fantasy romance, I'm gonna read it. So this is the it's just Trial of the Sun Queen, and it kind of, I remember reading the back of this, it made me think of like The Selection mixed with the Hunger Games, which I think will be kind of fun. 10 women, a deadly contest, and only one can win the Sun King's heart. So our main character, Lore, has endured years of torment under the Aurora King, and her only desire is to pay him back for every moment of misery she's endured, but then a surprise release finds her in the hands of the rival Sun King, and she's thrust into the spotlight to compete against 9 other tributes for the role of queen. And she doesn't belong in these trials, she doesn't understand why she was freed, she's not a citizen of the Sun Court, and the other tributes resent her presence. And now Lore must win, because if she loses, she dies. Or worse, she'll be returned to the evil and now vengeful Aurora King. Do you see what I mean? It's like Selection mixed with Hunger Games. So I just found it interesting, and it was 30% off, and so I bought it. And it's also got a nice cover with like the gold. I like this like style of text that's really popular right now on book covers, specifically like fantasy book covers, but it also is kind of giving the Inheritance Games. Next book I also got very recently. I got 3 Holidays and a Wedding, and it's just like a cute little Christmassy rom-com. It's really floppy, which we know I love, and this is about 2 girls who are flying to Toronto, which I think this is why this is on display at my bookstore, but they're flying to Toronto for different reasons, and they assume they're never gonna see each other again, so they like confess their like deepest, darkest secrets to each other. But then severe turbulence leads to an emergency landing in a small town called Snow Falls, and they both kind of like find romance in this little town, and it just sounds really Christmassy and festive and cute. And I have Funny You Should Ask. You probably know what this is about. I feel like it was really popular this year, but it's a rom-com about like an interviewer and an actor, and they spend 2 days together, and everyone's obsessed with them. It like goes viral, and people are like, oh my gosh, they should be together forever, they have great chemistry, and then they like never speak again until 10 years later when they do another interview. And I love the cover of this book, which is mainly why I bought it. It's so pretty. Then I have Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. Guys, this I am like, it's been on my TBR for so long, I need to read it. And it's not that I'm not like, I don't want to read it, because I do. I know I'm gonna love this book, so I don't know why I keep putting it off. But this is about 2 childhood friends who spend like their summers reading books and falling in love, and then something happens, some sort of fallout, and they see each other again 10 years later and start to reconnect. So it's like a dual timeline, friends to lovers, second chance romance. Next book is The House of Salt and Sorrows, and this is about 12 sisters who are cursed and live under the sea, and they just start dying out of nowhere, I guess, and Anna Lee, who is one of the sisters, becomes increasingly suspicious, and she teams up with a mysterious stranger who has secrets of his own, and it's a race to unravel the darkness that has fallen over her family before it claims her next. Once again, this is a fantasy romance, and that's why I bought it. And it's described as spellbinding and filled with magic, so I think this will be a fun, more like fairy tale-esque fantasy to read. Then we have Dance and Vow of Thieves. I also really want to read this. This has also been on a TBR in the past. These are just thick books, which is mildly intimidating to me, which I don't know why, because I've read longer books. Like, I read Kingdom of Ash, okay? I read the entire Throne of Glass series. Like, there's no book is longer than that. Except, okay, I actually read The Stand by Stephen King just to prove that I could, and that book is like 1,400 pages. It's so long. For what? I don't know. A son destined to lead thrust steadily into power, 3 fierce young women of the Ratan, the Queen's premier guard, and a legendary street thief determined to prove herself. When outlaw leader meets reformed thief, a cat and mouse game of false moves ensues, bringing them intimately together in a battle that may cost them their lives and their hearts. This is reviewed by Stephanie Garber, who also had a review on House of Salt and Sorrows, and she called it a brilliant fantasy with a boldly beating heart. So, once again, I believe this is fantasy romance. We can sense a theme here. Next, I got this very recently, which is Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This is her YA debut, and I've heard like pretty good things about it for the most part. I do like Ali Hazelwood's writing. I feel like it's really fast-paced, really easy to read, and I like chess. I was in chess club in elementary school, and this could reignite my chess phase, like the Queen's Gambit did. This book is about Mallory, who played chess all her life, but she's never really done like tournaments or anything, but she begrudgingly agrees to play in a charity tournament and inadvertently wipes the board with notorious king killer Nolan Sawyer, who's the current world champion and reigning bad boy of chess. Nolan's loss to an unknown rookie shocks everyone, especially Mallory. This honestly doesn't even sound that much like a romance. That's kind of what I've heard about this, is it's like almost more chess focused than romance focused. I think I'll still really enjoy it. Okay, last book, Once Upon a Broken Heart. This is by Stephanie Garber, and it is about Evangeline, who makes a deal with the Prince of Hearts, who is Jax, and the only reason that I tried to read Finale. And her deal means that she has to give him 3 kisses whenever he chooses. He has plans for her that will either end in the greatest happily ever after or the most exquisite tragedy. I really like Jax. I think he could be a really interesting character to read about more in depth in these books. Hopefully I like this better than the Caraval series. We will see. So those are all of the books that I have not read yet that I have on my physical TBR. A lot to get through. I don't even know which ones I want to read before the end of the year. Definitely my little Christmas book here. I definitely want to read The Wake Up Call, which I will be reading next, and I kind of want to read Once Upon a Broken Heart soon. I want to do like a full series reading vlog for this, but we'll see. And then I also really want to read The Naturals, because I think this is something that I'll just like get really into and like fly through, and I feel like I need that right now. If you enjoyed this video, you can subscribe down below for new bookish videos every single week, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye!